It's now time for the Mike Wagner Show, powered by Sonic Web Studios. Visit online at sonicwebstudios.com for all your needs. The Mike Wagner Show can be heard on Spreaker, Spotify, iHeartRadio, YouTube, iTunes, Anchor FM, Radio Public, and the MikeWagnerShow.com. Mike brings you great guests and interesting people from all across the globe. So sit back, relax, and enjoy another great episode of the Mike Wagner Show.
Hey everybody, it's Mike from the Mike Wagner Show, powered by Sonic Web Studios. Visit online at sonicwebstudios.com for all your needs. Look at a professional website without breaking your budget. Sonic Web Studios is the answer. Sonic Web Studios offers fast, affordable custom web designs at below the competition way. Call today at 1-800-303-3960. That's 1-800-303-3960. Or email to support@sonicwebstudios.com. Mention the Mike Wagner Show, get 10% off your first order. Sonic Web Studios, take your image to the next level. Also, the Mike Wagner Show can be heard on the MikeWagnerShow.com. You can check our Facebook page at facebook.com/the Mike Wagner Show. You can download and listen on Facebook, SoundCloud, Spreaker, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. Also on Anchor FM, Radio Public, iTunes, Google Play, and over 35 podcast platforms. Take the Mike Wagner Show with you on any mobile device. Subscribe to the Mike Wagner Show on the YouTube channel. Also follow the Mike Wagner Show on Instagram and Twitter today. We're here with a wonderful director who's got a brand new movie that will be coming out in May as well, too. He has experience with the Cooking Channel, Travel Channel, ABC, ESPN, Fox Sports, and many, many more. And he's just an amazing director. He's got a brand new film that's coming out as well, too, with a few notable stars. And happy to talk about his experience. And, of course, you know, just broadcasting live from the home studio right here. And for the love of Jessee, here is the director and just loves Jessee and for what he does and everything else. Ladies and gentlemen, director David McAbee. David, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Thanks for joining us today.
Mike, great to have me, man. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it. It's good to see another human being right now.
Is it because of the pandemic or is it just normal for you?
Yeah, it's normal for me. I'm usually locked away writing. So when I came out of my bunker and the world was shut down, I was a little shocked. So it's good to see another human.
Of course, he makes you wonder how many they are. It's like you're probably in a little chalkboard. You 1, 2, 3, and just you know, just count,
exactly.
Count out here. Yeah.
Yep.
So you're the director of an upcoming film for the love of Jessee, which is May 1st. And you also worked with Lorraine Landon with Nighttime as well, too. And, of course, you know, this movie is starring Randy Wayne from the Dukes of Hazzard, Mandabella Rose, Adrienne Barbeau, and Ray Blair and Tony Denman of Fargo as well, too. And, of course, you also had some other works as well, too. You've been on Cooking Channel, Travel Channel, ABC, ESPN, and more. And before we get into your movie and your works, tell us how it got started.
Accidentally got started. I'm not good at much else other than writing and making things. Before I got into film and TV, I was in radio, old school radio, AM FM radio. I had a couple of shows. Yeah. And it was great. And then moved to LA about in 2009. And that's when the nightmare began.
Oh, really? So how this nightmare began for you?
It did, yeah. I started off, as you said, in docu-reality television, which is a trip. So I've traveled the world shooting cooking shows, car shows, house shows, boat shows, build shows, your mom shows, everything. And then in 2016, like you said, I worked with Lorraine Landon on Night Terrors, which was a blast. We had a great time shooting that, and working with Adrienne was amazing. And that kind of kick-started where we are today. Producers of For the Love of Jessee saw Night Terrors and hired me to write that, and boom, Bob's your uncle. Here we are.
That was amazing. And tell us about how you first got involved with For the Love of Jessee.
In 2016, I wrote and directed Night Terrors, which is a horror short that can be found on Amazon Prime. And the producers of For the Love of Jessee, we worked together on another project, but they saw Night Terrors and came to me and said, could you write this idea? I have an idea about a doctor who loses his wife in childbirth. Could you write that story? And I said, why the hell not? Let's give it a try. And we did that, and the script won Best Dramatic Screenplay at the LA Film Awards. And then that led us to financing, and we shot the film in 2017 in Arizona over about a month period. And lucky enough, by the grace of God, it comes out May 1st, and hopefully people will enjoy it as much as we enjoyed making it.
Mm-hmm. And also, as you mentioned as well, too, after an accident leaves Dr. Luke Matthews, widower and father in Manor of Ours, must learn how to start over. And of course, it's interesting that, Sage loses their baby to a miscarriage. Luke decides to hire a nanny. And of course, it's just one of those things where it's like you start taking care of the baby, and also a relationship starts. And also, too, that I am thinking here is that along the lines is that, was that based on a real story of that happened to somebody? Was it someone that you were close to, related, or was it something that a real life story or anything like that?
Well, our producer, Curtis Schlarbaum, was a nurse for a long time. And I think she was just surrounded by a lot of this stuff in the prenatal ward. Some horror stories like losing babies or losing your wife in childbirth. And I think that's where the story stemmed. And then when she saw what I did with Night Terrors, I think she kind of had a little faith that I could write this dramatic tale of these two people really searching for a second chance. I mean, that's at the end of the day, that's kind of what this film is about. Randy Wayne's character, Luke, loses his wife and becomes a father in a matter of hours and is trying to put his life back together. Sage, played by the wonderful and very talented Mandala Rose, loses her child in childbirth, and she's just broken. She's a broken spirit. She's a broken human who's just kind of floating through life until she meets Luke and is accepted by him and falls in love with his baby and just kind of becomes this family and learns that she's very deserving of a second chance and very deserving of having love in her life. And Luke learns along the way that he can start to let go and he can start to have a life that he thinks he deserves. And again, that's kind of what the movie is about. It's about second chances and redemption.
Mm-hmm. And it sounds like there's second chances in many ways as well, too. Mm-hmm. And also, I know some people that have lost children along the way, too. And, in some cases I was reading about where a couple have lost like maybe 4 or 5 children. They end up in divorce. And of course, there are some that lose 1 or 2 children themselves. It's like they end up adopting a couple of pets, and some end up having children, and some just keep their pets as children. So basically there's just more than one way to cope with the situation.
Yeah, it is. And it's probably one of the most difficult scripts I've ever written, because you can fake that, but people will smell BS real quick. So I wanted to treat those losses with a lot of respect and a lot of realism. So I did a little homework and I talked to people and I asked questions, because I wanted to get those heartfelt beats right, because you can fake it, but people will smell it a mile away. And so far, so good. People seem to really enjoy. The few people that have seen it previewed really seem to enjoy it. It really seems to be striking a chord with people. A lot of females, a lot of males. I feel like there's a little bit of something for everybody in this film.
Mm-hmm. And also, too, it said that Sage loses the baby to miscarriage, and I don't know if this is going to apply as well, too. That did they say was it like a birth defect, or what was the cause of miscarriage? Anything physical or anything like within the genes or DNA or anything like that?
We didn't get too deep into the genes, or we mentioned what happens, but we didn't get too deep into it. We left it with a very realistic thing that it doesn't happen often, but it can happen. And the cool thing about it is I was working for a lot of the really technical things. I got to talk to real doctors that worked with patients. So everything that's said is pretty much by the book, as far as medically speaking. And then a lot of those doctors actually ended up being extras in the film, and it worked out kind of nice.
I was going to say, how many doctors did you get to interview about this?
2 or 3 that worked in that field. And then when we were shooting, like on ground shooting day of, we had doctors sitting right behind me watching monitors, and I would ask, like, is this how they really did it? Like, how would you really do it in the real world? And they sat in with me, and we would go over how the nurses would put things in and how things go on, and it seems pretty realistic.
Wow, it does sound realistic, and we'll talk a little bit more about that, and plus, some of your other works and the stars that were in the show. But first, listen to the Mike Wagner Show at the MikeWagnerShow.com, powered by Sonic Web Studios. Visit online at SonicWebStudios.com for all your needs. Looking for a professional website without breaking your budget? Sonic Web Studios is the answer. Sonic Web Studios offers fast, affordable custom web designs at below the competition way. Call today at 1-800-303-3960. That's 1-800-303-3960. Or email to support@sonicwebstudios.com. Mention the Mike Wagner Show. Get 10% off your first order. Sonic Web Studios. Take your image to the next level. Also, the Mike Wagner Show can be heard on the MikeWagnerShow.com. You can check our Facebook page at Facebook.com/The Mike Wagner Show. You can download and listen on Facebook, SoundCloud, Spreaker, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. Also on Anchor FM, Radio Public, iTunes, Google Play, and Apple. Over 35 podcast platforms. Take the Mike Wagner Show with you on any mobile device. Subscribe to the Mike Wagner Show on the YouTube channel. And also follow the Mike Wagner Show on Instagram and Twitter today. We're here with director David McAbee from For the Love of Jessee here on the Mike Wagner Show. Old-time radio guy. He's been doing it for quite some time. And what was the year that you went from old-time radio over to film directing? I forgot to ask you about that.
I started in radio right at the end of when old radio was a thing. So it was 2004 to 2009, 2003 to 2009. I started in college and had a really good radio show, and then got hired to produce a morning show, a country radio show. And then I had a weekend rock show that I hosted, and then got out of that right around 2008, 2009.
Wow, that was amazing. And where did you do your radio show at?
I grew up in San Luis Obispo, so just north of LA a bit, so right between LA and San Francisco. And just the same reason everyone else gets into radio is for free concert tickets. So that's why we did it. It was free concert tickets, and then there was a paycheck to boot.
That's strange, because I got into radio back in 1982. I was not interested in concert tickets. I just wanted something to do. Besides getting computers, that was just a thing. And it felt like as soon as I put my name on an application, I feel like, that radioactive spider from Spider-Man just bit me. And that's how the radio bug got started. And the only cure was get behind this microphone. Otherwise, the radio bug will just keep biting you harder and harder and harder and harder.
Good. It hasn't let go. That's what I like to see.
There you go.
And infectious.
And who are some of your favorite radio inspirations? And also say, like, with your personalities growing up and then getting into directing, who are some of your favorite directors growing up?
I mean, for radio, it's got to be Stern. Stern broke the way for shock rock type guys, but just to like step out of the box and do something that's not. He wasn't painting in the lines, which I really liked. I mean, as far as film inspirations, I mean, look at anything behind me here in my homemade video rental store. But I'm a kid of the 90s, so I grew up with that 90s boom of independent films. So Kevin Smith, Robert Rodriguez, Tarantino, obviously, Doug Liman, Jon Favreau. So anybody in that kind of ilk is something I really gravitated toward.
Mm-hmm. That's interesting. You mentioned about your favorite actors and those growing up as well too. I was going to ask you about that. And where's some of your favorite movies growing up?
Oh, where do I start? I mean, I'm a horror guy, so my mom showed me Psycho at a very young age, and I think as you got the radio bug that bit you, I got the horror spider that dove under my skin and has been there ever since I saw the first Psycho. I think that's where it starts and ends with me, is Hitchcock, Psycho. Everything else from there, it spawns from that.
Mm-hmm. And I can imagine, too, as it gets a bit, you're like, ah!
And then growing up, like working in video stores, when video stores were a thing. I know I'm dating myself, but working in video stores, that's how I got to experience new movies, like movies that you wouldn't see in a theater, or foreign films, which aren't a lot of people's bag, but like that's how I saw a lot of stuff that wasn't just your run-of-the-mill thing in the theater. Was working at video stores and watching old skate videos and hearing music, and then this guy recommending a Harmony Korine film, and that blowing my mind. So it all starts and ends at Hitchcock and working at a video store.
Isn't that something as well, too? And of course, getting back to your movie For the Love of Jessee as well, too, you had Randy Wayne in there from the Dukes of Hazzard, Mandela Rose, Adrienne Barbeau, Ray Blair, and also Tony Denman from Fargo. And tell us all about Randy Wayne and what's it like working with him, Dukes of Hazzard.
Yeah, you know what? It's kind of it's definitely a story. How we got Randy. I originally wrote the script with a good friend of mine, Blake Heron, in mind, and Blake had signed on to play the role. Blake was a child actor in the 90s and into the aughts, and just like a crazy talented actor. And he signed on to play the character that at the time the lead character was named David. But unfortunately, Blake passed away 2 months before production started. So
Fine.
The producers called me after he passed and said, if you don't want to continue, we understand. But if you want to continue, you have our support. So after sitting on it, drinking on it, talking it over, what would Blake think? We decided to move forward, obviously, and that's how we hooked up with Randy Wayne. And dude's a class act, man. Showed up. I mean, we were through the script at him a month before production. And I did a ton of rewrites, so it wasn't Blake's character anymore. So it was kind of a little more open-ended, so I could tailor it more towards Randy. And the dude came in and nailed it. It's a totally different character than what I had written originally, which was good because I didn't want to direct someone trying to play Blake's part. I wanted to direct somebody playing the role of Luke Matthews. And Randy came in, and him and Mandala have this amazing chemistry, amazing chemistry. They're two different people, two different walks of life, but you feel the spark in them the seconds that they're both on screen together. And there's this dance scene that they're like slow dance scene that they have, and you can just feel it, and that's what I auditioned him for. I brought Mandala with me and I said, just slow dance and talk. Let me see you guys talk. And they did. And it felt real because that was a big thing. Blake and Mandala had this great chemistry when we were auditioning and reading. And then when that wasn't a thing anymore, I had to find someone to fit that romantic leading man role. And boom, Randy Wayne.
It sounds amazing as well, too. And, of course, you had Adrienne Barbeau as well, too. She was in Maude, The Fog, Swamp Thing, Escape from New York, and more. Tell us about Adrienne Barbeau. What's it like working with a film legend like her? I remember her days from Maude. She was amazing.
Oh, and the thing is, she's even more amazing now. And like I said, I'm a horror nerd. I'm a horror nerd to the deepest of the deep of my core. So when I saw this very short list of actresses who might be interested in playing the role of Catherine in the film, and I saw Adrienne's name on there, I was like, yeah, let's see if we can get her. And we sent her the script. She read the script, and she called me and said she had like questions about the role, questions about the character. What if we tried this? Can I try changing something like she was asking smart questions that like made the character deeper and not just words on a page, because I didn't want that. You can hire any actor to just say the words on a page, but I needed, it's an independent film. It's not a lot of money. So for someone to come on, I wanted them to believe in it, even though it's not, it's not breaking the bank. And she came in and nailed this role, but she was asking the smart questions, asking the right questions. That's something that only comes with like 4 decades in the industry. Plus she's a horror icon. So I couldn't say no.
Oh, really? Okay. And we'll talk about some of the some of the horror films and what you guys have in common. You also had Ray Blair from Las Vegas, The Flash, SWAT, Babysitters Club, and Tony Denman from Fargo, Grumpy Old Men. You can tell us about those two.
Tony and I have become good buds after that. He was really good friends with Blake, and that's how he got onto the film, because him and Blake already had this tight connection. They're best friends in real life. They were going to play best friends in the movie. It's a no-brainer. I've seen Tony act, so I didn't need to audition him. I just know he's a good actor. And then, again, to speak to his ability as an actor, he comes on with Randy Wayne, and they seem like best buds already. They seem like they're tight. They seem like they have a lot of history together. And to now walk away from the film saying that these are my friends is very rare. So Tony is grade A, top choice, my boy.
That is fantastic as well, too. And, of course, we'll talk about upcoming plans as well, too, and a little bit more for Love of Jessee. But first, listen to The Mike Wagner Show at themikewagnershow.com, powered by Sonic Web Studios. Visit online at sonicwebstudios.com for all your needs. Looking for a professional website without breaking your budget? Sonic Web Studios is the answer. Sonic Web Studios offers fast, affordable custom web designs at below the competition way. Call today at 1-800-303-3960. That's 1-800-303-3960. Or email to support@sonicwebstudios.com. Mention the Mike Wagner Show. Get 10% off your first order. Sonic Web Studios. Take your image to the next level. Also, the Mike Wagner Show can be heard on the MikeWagnerShow.com. You can check our Facebook page at Facebook.com/The Mike Wagner Show. You can download and listen on Facebook, SoundCloud, Spreaker, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. Also on Anchor FM, Radio Public, iTunes, Google Play, and Apple. Over 35 podcast platforms. Take the Mike Wagner Show with you on any mobile device. Subscribe to the Mike Wagner Show on the YouTube channel. Also follow the Mike Wagner Show on Instagram and Twitter today. We're here with director David McAbee on the Mike Wagner Show. He's directed for The Love of Jessee, coming out in May of 2020. And just a couple more things about For the Love of Jessee. You talked about learning how to start over, second chances. And what do you want audiences to come away with after seeing this movie?
Well, if you would have asked me that 2 months ago, it would have been a different answer. But right now, I want people to just come away with spending 94 minutes with our film and not having to pay attention to the news. Mm-hmm. Step back from the news, step back from everything that's out there, spend 94 minutes watching a love story, settle in, popcorn, your favorite person next to you, your favorite dog next to you, whatever it is, and just take a break.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's really interesting as well, too. And, of course, where can we find For the Love of Jessee?
Friday, May 1st, you will be able to find For the Love of Jessee on iTunes, Amazon, Google Play, Roku, and Tubi. And then later in June, you'll be able to find it at Walmart, Target, and BestBuy.coms. You can actually buy a DVD. Remember those DVDs? You can actually pick up a DVD, put it in a DVD player if you still have one, and watch it that way too.
Mm-hmm. We still have a few in our house too. You can also stick a DVD in your computer as well too. It's called Redbox, and we've gotten back into it. If you get tired of Netflix, there's always Redbox.
Yeah, nailed it.
And of course, back in the 90s, it was always Blockbuster. That was the most reliable one. So,
yeah.
And I remember just having Blockbusters in just about every single corner of where everyone lives, right by a gas station, there's a Blockbuster. Or say where you go eat, there's a Blockbuster.
There's a Blockbuster.
A bar, there's a Blockbuster. So
now there's only one Blockbuster left, and it's located in Bend, Oregon. And they just did a documentary about this last Blockbuster, and I'm featured in it, which is I'm super thankful to be in. So I think that'll be out later this summer. Hopefully, we'll see. But yeah, the last Blockbuster, it's in Bend, Oregon.
You sure it's not a horror film?
I know, right? It could be. It's probably a little bit of both. Starts out as a love story and ends as a horror.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, do you have your Blockbuster card? Ah!
Yeah, right?
There's the screens right there. And speaking of horror as well, too, it's like, you've been a horror buff for some time, and you're connected with a lot of horror buffs, Adrian Barbeau, Lorraine Landon, and the likes. And you also mentioned some of your favorite movies. And what would you say probably your still number one favorite, or maybe you can talk about some of your other favorite horror movies that has really impacted you as a person, and also your career, and also defining your style of directing?
I'll start at the last part of that. My style, my film school was actually working for like the Travel Channel and the Food Network and ESPN, being out on the road for months at a time with my camera crew, and being able to infuse my style of comedy, horror, action into segments of a food show where they're speaking a line from one of my favorite horror movies, or they're saying a funny line from Jurassic Park or something, and learning how camera angles are very important and how to utilize that in my work on those networks. So when I stepped back from working with those guys and started directing my own things, I had hundreds of thousands of hours of experience already working with multiple kinds of cameras, multiple kinds of crews, big crews, small crews, and everything in between. So that's kind of how I found my niche, my style, and I'm still finding that. I'm still growing in that way. It's still early. But that's how I kind of found my niche. And then as far as like my favorite horror goes, like I said, I'm a child of the 80s and 90s. I mean, you got Halloween up there. You got Nightmare on Elm Street 3, 4, and 5 are my favorite. The Dream series. That's Dream Child, Dream Warrior. Those are the ones. Freddy Krueger. He's my man. That's horror. So those are the first ones that kind of like jumped to my brain. And then obviously Escape from New York, The Fog, Adrienne Barbeau film. So that's why it was such a treat to actually work with a legend like her. And going back to Night Terrors, working with Lorene Landon, Yellow Hair, Hundra, Airplane 2. Come on, like this. Like, how can you say no to working with like such like class act badass female actors?
I've had Lorraine Lennon on my show too, and she was one of the best. And she also had her pets as well too, the star special guest. I mean, just amazing, I'll tell you.
Yeah, right. No, she is a class act, and if it wasn't for her, the notoriety that Night Terrors got, it wouldn't have been anything if it wasn't for her. She took me to festivals, she took me to conventions, she took me to signings. We printed Night Terrors posters, signed posters, and then, which is a thing that's very rare for shorts, is Night Terrors got distribution, which is crazy. So you can find it on Amazon Prime. If you want a little spook in your day, check it out. And again, I don't think a lot of that would have been possible without Lorene.
And what are your thoughts on some of the horror films out there, by Stephen King, like The Shining and Christine and more?
Oh, I mean, the Stephen King, you almost can't go wrong with anything that Stephen King has his name on. And I think today especially is such a good era for horror. You've got Shudder, you've got AMC with like Walking Dead, Talking Dead, all of that. And Netflix with, it seems like a new Stephen King movie every year, or every quarter almost. So now is a great time for horror. So if I were to ask what's my favorite time in horror, I think right now is my favorite time in horror.
Mm-hmm. And every time I think of Stephen King, I think of Here's Johnny.
Oh, I mean, The Shining is a staple. Like that is, I mean, it's definitely not the book. And even though Stephen King doesn't like it, it's definitely a Stanley Kubrick film. It's a Stanley Kubrick film of kind of a Stephen King story. But it's one of the best. It's one of the best. Like, hands down, it's one of the best.
And speaking of Stanley Kubrick, what are your thoughts on Clockwork Orange? I remember watching Clockwork Orange, and I was like, that was amazing by Stanley Kubrick.
No, it's it's amazing. Again, it's one of those movies I think I saw when I was too young, so I was like blown away by it in like all the wrong ways. I obviously have seen it 100 Ways to Sunday since then, but seeing it as a young kid going like, the milk bar and they're beating a guy in an alley and then they've got his eyes taped open. Like, it's a trip, but it is one hell of a movie.
Mm-hmm. And it certainly is as well, too. And what are your upcoming plans for 2020 and beyond?
2020. Well, I don't know. I think 2020 might be a wash. I think we might have to hit the restart button on 2020. But once we're out of this madness, it's to continue working. I've got a new, obviously For the Love of Jessee comes out in May. Or on Friday. And then I've got a new short that hopefully will come out in June. It's called Nova, and it's back to my roots of horror. And I teamed up with some of the Jessee team for that, our DP, the actress in Nova, Kelly Kula, who was in Jessee. You just find people that you really like working with, and you want to just continue making things with those people. So we got a good crew of people who just are eager to make something, and they push ego aside and they say, do you have a good script? Do you have a good story? Cool, let's make something. And that's what we did. We took a chance on this little short, and I finished the feature screenplay not too long ago, and we'll cross our fingers that we'll get to make something big from it.
That sounds amazing, too. We're here with director David McAbee For the Love of Jessee here on the Mike Wagner Show. And before we go here, you've been fantastic. Love to have you back on again and give us an update. And who do you consider biggest influence in your career?
Biggest influence in my career right now would probably have to be my fiance. I know it's cheesy, but she's my little rock. If I take a script to her and I read this, I kind of know if I'm on the right track, if she's scared or laughing, but she's the first one to give honest feedback because she's not in the industry. She just likes a good story. So she'll say, yeah, this is good. I like it. Does this and this, or I think you can do better. It's kind of clunky and kind of crappy. Try again, So that's my influence. That and my dog.
There you go. I mean, they're your best critics there is. You got to love them. So, and what's the best advice you can give to anybody at this point?
There's no easier time to actually make a movie. You can make a movie on your phone. So if you got that itch, scratch it.
And we got it right here too, and make a movie one day as well. So,
yep.
Once again, David McAbee, director for The Love of Jessee here on the Mike Wagner Show. A big thank you for your time. You've been fantastic. Looking forward to having you again soon. Once again, tell us about your upcoming projects, your website, how do people contact you, and where can people purchase for The Love of Jessee, and where can they find it?
Yeah, Mike, thanks for having me, man. Thanks for taking the time in this wild time. Just so everyone knows, we are more than 6 feet apart. We haven't touched. So,
I think by Skype, which is non-Zoom, I think it's like more than 6 feet.
I think so.
Yeah, exactly. It's like I'm in another part of the country, and so are you. It's like we've accomplished more than our social distance.
Yes, we've sanitized, folks. Check out For the Love of Jessee, May 1st. iTunes, Amazon, Roku, Tubi, Google Play, and then later on you can find it at Target, Walmart, and BestBuy.com. Buy that DVD if you want to. Be old school like me. Buy a DVD. And Mike, dude, it was good to be here. You can find me on Instagram, the McAbee Face, on Facebook under David McAbee, and the trailer is all over the interwebs. Look it up on YouTube. For the Love of Jessee. Check it out.
And for the love of Jessee, for love of David McAbee, you've been fantastic. Thank you for your time. You've been great. Looking forward to having you again soon. And do us a favor, keep this up to date. We love to have you back. You've been fantastic.
Mike, I appreciate it, man. We'll talk soon.
Thanks for listening to the Mike Wagner Show, powered by Sonic Web Studios. Visit online at sonicwebstudios.com for all your needs. The Mike Wagner Show can be heard on Spreaker, Spotify, iHeartRadio, iTunes, YouTube, Anchor FM, Radio Public, and themikewagnershow.com. Please support our program with your donations at themikewagnershow.com. Join us again next time for another great episode of The Mike Wagner Show.